Welcome back to another video. So it's been a while and a lot of things have happened in the sort of a month that we haven't been filming for. We have filmed a few things, but as you can see everywhere around me, there is no Kawasaki. So what's happened? I've finished the bike, and as you know, I've been riding it for quite a while, and I decided to then sell it so I can continue with other projects such as the Fazer. As you've seen on my previous channel, I have done quite a lot to it already, and I have been working on it behind scenes and trying to get it a little bit more further on to finish up a few bits, because otherwise it's just going to be very repetitive and boring video. So what I have been working on is this. This is an enclosure for all of the electronics. I know it doesn't look very pretty, but this is just kind of like a mock-up that I'm working on. And all of this stuff here, which is the electronics for the bike, will need to be put into here and then ultimately put underneath the tank. So I'm sure you're all wondering what's happened to the Kawasaki. So as much as I enjoyed building that bike, all good stories come to an end, and unfortunately today is the day where I decided to sell the Kawasaki. We had a great time on it, and done about 800 miles on this, which actually was pretty good. But as you can see, it's currently being loaded up and off to London. Is it London you're going to? Can't hear me. But yeah, so hopefully it's gonna have a good life in London, but unfortunately, show must go on. It's a great bike. Unfortunately, I can't keep it now, but looks like it's going to a good home. So, as you can see, bike is gone, and yes, I'm very sad because it was a really, really good bike, and I've done about 800 miles on it. But you know, I did say I was going to ride it, but unfortunately, some of the footage that I've made wasn't really as good as I wanted it to be. So I've got a few videos or few clips to show you right now that I've actually managed to capture, and you can kind of see it riding. But overall impressions of the bike, it's an absolute beast. Absolutely love the bike. It was stupidly quick for, you know, for the age of the bike, and was really surprised by it. So anyone looking for a you know, stupidly fast classic bike, I would definitely recommend it. So the clip, here's a couple clips from my ride. See the videos of the bike sounded great, and it was a lot of fun. So today we're going to be working on the Fazer, which obviously there are some videos that you may have seen before that I started making, but I kind of stopped because the Kawasaki have taken over, and obviously I was super excited to start riding that, and that was closer to be finished. And also we've got Ryan's bike here, who's behind the camera, and he's going to be doing some oil change. Is it oil change?
Oil change, and I'm going to strip down, ready for a deep clean.
And deep clean, baby. Yeah, we deep cleaning the S-Rad because basically Ryan is doing his bike license, so we're just getting it ready, so it's ready for the road for him. On here, we just put the tank on for show, so we can see what we got. I keep going back and forth with this bike. I'm going for the crazy, super clean hot rod look, to then a bit of a rat rod with a bit more style, and you know, keep the tires, don't keep the tires, and I'm still in between what to do. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell me guys what you think I should do. However, now I have made this box which kind of goes in here. I've got some bolts in there stopping it from going in, but that will basically go in, which I'll show you in a minute. And there is an entry point on the back right here, which will house all of these cables. Now, as you can see, this Christmas tree of cables, they've been spliced and cut and extended in all sorts of ways from the previous owner. So I'm gonna have another wiring fun like I did on the ZX12R, but you know, we can we can sort it out. Okay, so whilst Ryan getting his bike stripped out right there, I've got the box right here. So as you can see, it's not the prettiest, and the reason I haven't gone too crazy with the aesthetics is because eventually I'm going to get this 3D printed. So if I can get all the cables and everything running with the battery, get the bike up to a point where I can use it and also tune it, I can basically then go back and fit nicer bits to it. There is a reason why I'm kind of deciding not to go too pretty with this bike, because I want to do something and it might cause a little bit of, you know, damage. I will get new handlebars anyway, but I do like the look of this bike as it sits there right now. And I've got the seat, which will be getting done. But if you ever wanted to get a seat covered, it's like 300 quid. And also the tank itself is 300 quid. And then the radiator is about 120 quid. And then all the gaskets and all the fluids. So before you know it, you're down in the bike already about £1,000. Right, to start off, I've got my drill and I put a little sanding pad on the end. And with that, I'm going to basically just sand this a little bit and get rid of some of these points, you know, like the flyaways, I guess you can call it. Just basically give the surface a bit of a key. Right, I keyed it up, so now it's time to put it back in the bike and start sticking some cables through this so we can figure out what's what and how we're gonna tackle this. Let's check on Ryan here. So what we're gonna have to do with Ryan's bike here is basically we've taken the side covers off and we're gonna warm up the bike as usual and basically just drain oil out of it and give it a good old service. Drilling anything into the frame is never fun, but I managed to do it the first time. Box is in there kind of loosely because I haven't tightened it right down. I've got 2 bolts just there and I've got another one. This holds the battery in, so I'll show you that later. Right now we gotta get all of this inside there. Now there's a lot of things in here. It's like the fuse box and this is the ECU, I think. So this goes on the bottom right here. So there are some cables that are going to be routing above this, but everything's under the seat. And then I wanted to kind of future-proof it. So when we put this is the mudguard, I guess, which will be in carbon fiber eventually, and sits just down there. You may have seen it in other videos where I've made this. When you take this off, you'll be able to still access the battery. And if you needed that extra access, you can just take the seat off completely and then get in there. So, you know, if ever I need to work on this in the future, then I can access it from every point. It seems like wiring is becoming a theme with my bikes. And as you can see, this one is no different. But I'm fairly confident that I can make something out of this mess. Right, so I'm gonna cut this and strip it back and then stick it into that box. Right, everything's in now. Yeah, it's a mess, I know. But good news is that this will be fitting quite nicely straight in there. And then that part here is gonna just go into the ECU right there, and the rest of it is for the rear lights. So we're gonna have to rewire all of that to get that to work. But yeah, I think that's gonna work. What I'm going to do is just in here, I'm gonna put a little tape about here so I can measure from what point do I have to start cutting these and where I need to start rejoining them so I can shorten them and clean up all of this. So yeah, I'm just gonna cut to the point where I'm start cutting them up, I guess. I separated everything so you can see that this bunch here is all tangled up, so I'm gonna have to start cutting stuff out and bringing it up higher. That way I can separate them and kind of get everything untangled. This is quite long, so that needs cutting, and these are the easy ones, so I've just cable tied them onto the side now. However, Ryan's bike is slowly coming apart, so that's all the stuff in there. He's just fixing his front fairing because some of the bolts came out. And yeah, so I think it's nearly time to get this thing started and get it warmed up for the oil change.
Hey, that's a nice hoodie you got there, mate.
Ah, yes. Glad you asked, Ryan. As you can see, this is from a company called Apex Roadwear, and they do pretty cool designs, as you can see. If you are interested and you like the hoodie, and also they do t-shirts. If you like what you see, then head over to apexroadwear.com. I'll leave the link in the description and use Drew15 for a 15% discount. All right, it's the next day and I had to leave last night. So anyway, I've come back and I've got a little problem. So this is where it's gonna sit, right there. Obviously right underneath the trunk. And that's the entry there. Now, the whole idea was that I'm going to stick the battery in here like this. And once the battery goes in, all of the electronics can go in there, and then I could just attach the cables from the battery onto it. But the problem is that after fitting the cables in there and cutting them down and everything else, I didn't like the way it was sitting in there, and I can't get the cables, like perfectly organized in that box. So what I've come up with is that what if I was to close this part up and then open this part out, so the cables will still go through this hole here, but then it'll allow me to push them down, so everything is going to be underneath the tank and as well as the seat. And then that way it's going to be a little bit harder for me to in future get in there, but the battery will also be a little bit more stable underneath here, so it'll be sort of sitting there and it fits quite well. And then all of the cables will also be a little bit more secured. What I'm aiming for is an easy access to this box. So if I ever need to change the fuse or the battery, it's not a complete nightmare. First step, find the center, measure the battery, make sure that it fits in and out, and I'll also drill another hole, or actually cut another hole, for the rest of the wiring. Okay, now we just loosely test it. The battery should slide in. So I just need to cut this piece out slightly, and then that allows me to get the cables in, arrange everything inside there. So the only real piece that you're gonna see is right there. So if it's all black and carbon and sort of merging with the sort of general aesthetic of the bike, I think it's gonna look quite good. It just needs to hold the electrics, that's all it really needs to do. And hopefully the last part to this is that we gotta make a plug. And the reason we have to make a plug is because obviously if I start fiberglassing this part of the hole, everything's just gonna fall. So I'm gonna have to make a plug that's exactly the same shape as this. The hard part here is going to be, I guess I'll just trace this out and then cut it out. Moment of truth. Okay, so I actually don't have any fiberglass right now, but that's okay because I'll need to get some and some other bits anyway. The other problem I've got here is this. This is my front light that came with the bike. And the issue here is that the previous owner has obviously wired it up to this weird plug here that I've never seen before. And I'll take this off. I want to use to keep it that sort of classic retro look, and I've got some old school retro light, so one of these, and I think that's going to look pretty cool. However, I did have some clips to hold this, or the like a mounting brackets to hold this, but I didn't like them, so I got rid of them, and I've ordered some new ones. And the only other problem is that obviously this plug is only a 2-pin, and this plug is a 3-pin. Right, the plan is fairly simple. Cut the plugs off both headlights, hook them up to a battery, and figure out which wire does what. Once I've cracked that, I can mirror it on the existing wiring harness and that should be job done. I really hope that makes sense because it barely makes sense in my head, and I'm just trying to figure it out and using a little bit of common sense. But yeah. So now that I figured out which cable's which, I have I know what you're gonna say, but this is horrendous. I will sort all this out, don't you worry. But I've loosely connected every single connector, including the fuse box in here, just so I can get this up and running, which it is. And then if I flick the lights on here, you can see that's working. And then my passing lights, which is also working. I'm not sure why these ones are not working, but I'm hoping that I can figure that out in a minute. So all I need to do is just cut this off and then transfer it onto that. Okay, so I've loosely connected everything up with these Wagos. Obviously, I'm going to make this a lot nicer when it's finished, but this will just allow me to see if this configuration actually does work. That little light. So that little light there should work on like the low beam. So I've got the main one, and then passing lights, that works. And also my full beam light does not work, but the passing is, so there must be something else in there that I need to connect. Okay, so I think I have figured it out. I've got basically none of these cables none of these cables actually give me that little light there. So what I found that if I tap into one of these cables right here, I think it is that one, which goes directly into the switch here. When I flick it on, it will go on just for that one little light. And then if I flick it on all the way, it will give me the full lights. So I think in order to pass MOT and everything else, I think I just need to be able to have that working. All right then, next job. I need to remove the sump because I've never actually put a gasket on the sump. So I've also put the headers on because I had them vapor blasted. I wanted to see what they would look like after I polished them out, which they look amazing, but obviously they need to be taken out because I haven't actually got any gaskets on the headers itself. So we'll take that out and we'll take the sump off as well and put it all back together after I painted it. So then that's going to be another thing complete before the radiator and everything else comes in, what I've got coming in, so we can get closer and closer to starting the thing.
Yeah, I'm overzealous when I'm thinking about the cash flow. I never had no handouts, just came natural. I've been testing so much, all these wrestlers nice.
Okay, exhaust is off, and the next job is to remove all of these Allen key bolts all the way around. There's quite a lot of them in there, but in order to get them out, unfortunately, that's what we gotta do. But luckily for me, I've had this off before, so they shouldn't be too tight.
On my past mistakes, I swear I'm proud of all my best and my worst days. Proud of all my feet when I touch the ground. Front of 8 at Beijing, man, ain't know the sound. I know I made mistakes, but my mama proud. Fans scream my lyrics out in the background. They ain't know me then, but I'm hot now. They say life's a gamble, you gotta roll it down.
Here is the sump. Now you can see it's quite clean. Done my best to scrub out any of the old oil out, which came up looking really good actually. So next job is to just remove this.
A lot of different things just to live this life. When you down bad, you gotta pay the price. I've been through hell and back just to live this life. I'm faced with a lot of different choices these days. Do a rock and roll, Lex account a blue face. The whole world know my name off a mixtape. I still got the same brothers since 6th grade. G-Wagon, red seats, we on Biscayne.
All right, I've left it overnight because I needed to get the primer to actually set, and it's looking pretty good. the next job is to sand it again and then put the paint on. I don't really want to spend 10-15 minutes of the video actually showing you how I paint something, because everyone knows how to paint stuff. But anyway, I'm just gonna skip straight to the finished product. Right, okay, so it's next day, no, it's about 2 or 3 days since I painted the cover, and this is what it looks like. But yeah, you can see it looks pretty good. Yes, it's got a few imperfections, but who cares? It's underneath the bike anyway. And then if I'm really bothered about it in the future, I might as well just get it powder coated. But it's solid, so it's not coming off. Next, I just need to put this little sensor back in there and then stick it back on a bike. I've also received some gaskets. So I've got, this is for the Sump. I've got one for this part right here, which I haven't got a gasket on there right now. And I've got some new exhaust gaskets. So let's get it all mounted. A little trick for you guys, if you're ever putting gaskets on anything around the engine, this is something I've learned in the past and it worked really well for me. So I just grab a little bit of multi-purpose grease and then kind of rub it around the edge of where the gasket's going, and then that allows the gasket to stick to the actual part and it's not going to move on you when you're trying to put the bolts in. So I definitely recommend it. Don't go too crazy. Obviously use your brain when you're putting this in so you don't put too much into the engine, but really this helped me a lot in the past, so I'm gonna do it again.
Good boys don't play with bad girls. Good boys stay.
Okay, now we get our gasket, and then all I do is just press it where I put the grease, just gently, and it doesn't move as much. It still moves, but not enough to cause an issue when I'm putting it on the bike.
But I make it rain like 24/7. If it mean a little time with you, break my heart and leave me hurt. The next one just gonna do me worse. So if they all no good, I'll just be bad with you. Cause my mother told me as a child, boy, don't play around with fire, cause you might just end up getting burned.
Sump, finished, done. Don't need to worry about that no more. Next job is the crankcase cover gasket, which goes right here, if you can see that right there. So let's take it off and stick the cover on. I mean, the gasket. This is how I organize my bolts whenever I take them out, because you can see some of these are longer and some are shorter. So I kind of put them into this little circle, knowing that I need to start with this one, and then I'm going to work my way around, and I know exactly where every single one of these goes. I've got a little bit of old gasket right here, so I need to take that off and scrape it, put the new one on. All right, that's all torqued up. And the last thing to do is to put the gaskets for the exhaust. You can see that they're kind of like a little crash gasket, so it crashes inside the engine when you tighten it up, and obviously they're going to keep falling out. So once again, what I do is I just get a little bit of grease. Now don't worry about putting a bit more on, because it will burn off, always does. So we just put a little bit of grease on the actual gasket, and then stick that into the engine like so, and that stays in there, and then I can put the exhaust on. Exhaust is on. Now right here, it's pretty solid to be honest, with just those bolts right there, but I'll need to find a bolt for this one here, but I'm gonna just leave it off just for now, because I still need to build all this out, and this needs to come off and repaint this part of the rear sets. But as you can see, it's the bike is kind of very close to being started now. In the next video, I have ordered a few bits, and the bits to finish off this case for all of the electronics. I've ordered it, and because I went to a store and they tried to charge me like ridiculous amount of money for a little bit of fiberglass. So I've ordered it online, it still hasn't come, so I'm going to finish off that in the next video and get all of the electronics in, get it all to a point really where we can try and get this started. It's been sitting for about 2 years now, hasn't been started since. I know the engine still turns over, But whether it works as it should, I'm not sure. And obviously we're gonna have to balance the carbs and do all that sort of stuff. And I have never done it before, so that'll be an interesting job. But anyway, I know this video has been a little bit chaotic and, you know, not as structured as maybe my other ones, but I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.